Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 6. So it's Saturday night. By tomorrow night, 11:59 p.m., most of you will be completely done with your chapter 2s. This is a huge, huge moment. So this week, we're going to move into chapter 4. Now, chapter 4 really is an exciting opportunity for you to triangulate your research questions. So what that means is to answer each research question from various perspectives. The first being the literature. What themes emerge from the literature about how to answer your research questions? And then next, for all of you, is usually a survey or two. What did my peers think about the research question? What do my students think about these research questions? You're not conducting a study and then looking at the effects of that. You're describing these research questions through a lens of the research and through a lens of surveys or any data that you've been collecting or had been collected, already existed. You have then been gathering qualitative information in your reflection journals as well. And you're going to use direct quotations from your reflection journals to help answer these questions. Now, before we look at some key things here, I want to say stay organized in chapter 4. Okay? In summary, your chapter 4 is here's a reminder of what I'm going to do or what I did. Research question 1, here's how I answered it from the literature. Here's how I looked at it through surveys. Here were some themes that existed throughout. Here's my conclusions on research question 1. Okay, and all of that is outlined really nicely in these instructions. So I encourage you to first read the instructions for assignment number 3 very carefully. Take a look at the rubric. Okay, just skim through them first. Okay, and then pay close attention to the structure. You will discuss your findings by revealing themes. And what the data, when they say data, they mean the literature, your reflection journal. We're not talking about data like quantitative data that you gathered from some sort of cause and effect scenario. Okay, so what themes did your sources, your triangulation sources, reveal about the research questions? Okay, for each research question, discuss the themes as they developed across all instruments. So your literature and the surveys you might have implemented, and your own personal observations. And it talks about some basic computations you might do if you gathered surveys. Feel free to take averages, frequencies. You have not had a stats course, so don't get fancy. You're looking for themes that have emerged that allow you to make conclusions about your research questions. So, most importantly, this is great because 2 full capstone projects were just released from Concordia. I attached them to the announcement email. I also placed them in our folder. Read these through. These were papers that were approved, right? The students who wrote these graduated. So these are good things to look at. Now, they're not perfect, but I want to take a look at the chapter 4s of each, just a few parts of them, so that you get this idea of how to weave in between the literature and your surveys, what triangulation looks like. So let's take a look actually at this first one, okay? Because they both do 2 different strategies. So if I look at the beginning of chapter 4 for this first one, okay, and it starts by saying connections and findings, and it says, as Matt mentioned in chapter 1, and they go and they remind us about what those research questions were. Then boom, here. Factors affecting Latino students' academic performance, okay? In order to gain insight into the primary and secondary research question, the researcher completed an extensive literature review. In reading through various peer-reviewed academic journals about Latino students, there was valuable insight in regards to the different factors that the students face. In completing the literature review, it was apparent that blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then it says, in addition, these things were found. Okay. Then it says down here, in order to gain further insight into the primary and secondary research questions mentioned in chapter 1, a random student survey was conducted. The survey, blah, blah, blah. It's referenced in Appendix A. The survey revealed that, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then they go here and make some conclusions. Now, this is good because it explicitly talks about what the literature said, themes that emerged, what the survey said, themes that emerged, and then conclusions. What are your conclusions based on the literature and the surveys? Now, if this was me, I would not have clumped both research questions together. I would have done this twice, one for the first research question and one for the other. But it's clear here that what they're doing is talking about the literature, talking about school site observations, surveys, etc., making a conclusion by connecting those two and looking at themes that have emerged. You like my hand gestures? Let's look now at the other example, and they did it in more of a narrative way. Now, this reads really well. This is a well-written paper. If it were me, I would take the opportunity to be easy on the reader, decrease the cognitive load by adding more headings. But let's go ahead and look at this and talk about the way that they incorporate the literature and the surveys into it. Okay, so chapter 4 immediately goes right into it. Now, I would provide a paragraph first that reminds the reader about the purpose of the study, but this is fine also. This person graduated. An analysis of the literature reviewed and the data gathered provides insight into answering the research questions. The first question asks, what is the connection between development of communicating, reasoning, and the use of speaking and writing in collaborative tutoring assessments in 10th grade mathematics students? First off, just a great research question. You're asking the question and then you're outlining in general who are the subjects of this question, right? Who are the people? Not specifically, no one's mentioning the school site here, but in general, what are they? So don't be afraid, and actually please do add that to your research questions. Through the use of collaborative tutoring, the ability to communicate reasoning is developed among students by working as a group to express ideas that build upon one another and form coherent arguments. Collaboration promotes understanding, blah, blah, blah. Citation. So there's what the literature said. Now, this person did not explicitly say, according to the literature, they just immediately set up here an analysis of the literature reviewed. Okay? And then they say here, since students are explaining to each other, they must put the process in their own words, not only creating an opportunity for retention, but also putting the student in a situation where they must present their own ideas clearly. And then boom, one teacher stated in the teacher survey, the students who understand have an opportunity to understand the process on a deeper level, Appendix E. So then this writer is now weaving in what was said in the literature to what was said in the teacher and student surveys to corroborate that. So that's what's meant by triangulating it. You're going at the research question through the lens of the research, in this case the citation from Francisco in 2013, and surveys that are shown in Appendix E. Okay? The second research question asked this, and observe, noted, boom, 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 going right here to things we see in the appendix, okay, and then weaving in research later. And then now some conclusions here about it and recommendations for further practice. So, research question 1, literature, observations, conclusions. Research question 2, literature, observations, conclusions. Or research question 1, literature, observations, conclusions. Research question 2, literature, observations, conclusions. Boom, done. You can do a conclusion for one, a conclusion for each. However you want to work those in is completely fine. But the theme is research question, what the literature said, what the observations I saw said, however you want to do those in whatever order and whatever themes emerge for both research questions, and then conclusions about what this now says about these research questions. Okay? How can you answer them from triangulating them from these angles? I sound very repetitive in this video. And then what are your recommendations for future practice? So a really, really meaningful process. Sorry for this long video. I just want to make sure that all of you use these examples as templates of sort to give you insight into how others actually write. Go ahead and steal from the writing style, from the structure. This is what we do. Take care. Have a great, great, great week 6.